right, we're going to move on to maybe what could be considered some higher level attacks from a 2-on-1, and they're mainly throws. When I'm throwing, and pretty much all my throws that I'm going to be showing, it is critical, and I heard this for 5 years through college and past into my post-collegiate career, controlling something high and something low on upper body throws, and having to be in control of 2 points there, one anchor up top and one anchor down below, whatever that is. And hopefully that'll make a little bit more sense as I'm going through these holds right now. But I'm starting with my 2-on-1. This is one we have been talking about offense where I can kind of be coming down the arm and it's not as critical owning this shoulder. This is one that I have to own this shoulder. I really want to get him to feel uncomfortable with his shoulders kind of being pulled together a little bit. So I'm up high on his shoulder, and all I'm going to be doing to set this up a lot of times is I'm baiting him with my elbow. I'm throwing my elbow out here, wanting him to grab it. Usually when I have my 2-on-1, my elbows are glued to my side. Here I'm baiting him with my elbow out, wanting him to grab it. When he grabs my elbow, my hand that's on the wrist, so in this case for me it's going to be my right hand, the hand that's on the wrist is shooting to the far armpit, shooting to the far side. As that hand is shooting to the far side, that same foot, so my outside foot, is going to be stepping across a little inside step, cross step in front of my inside foot. As my hand goes to that far armpit. Now I'm going to be stepping behind. When I step, I'm not stepping really long. And I see that a lot when I'm showing this to newer kids at a camp or maybe inexperienced kids, is they want to pull guys on top of them. And they're stepping really long. There's kind of a fear of getting your hips in. That is something you got to get over for this hold. You really want to lift his hips with your hips underneath. So I'm baiting with my elbow. I'm cross-stepping. Outside foot is coming inside. And then my inside foot is coming deep. It's not deep here. It's deep with my hips, buckling his leg in. That's really important, that little part right there where I'm stepping and I'm moving his hips by leaning my knees in. So that's kind of a resistance point if you want to think about it like that. As I'm pulling that far shoulder to my chest that's kind of the foundation of this throw, the way I do it. Baiting him with my elbow, he's grabbing that. Outside foot is pretty much coming to his toe. And I don't want to say cross step. Sometimes people are already going to be holding it like this and then they're just stepping in front. So don't think of it as a cross step, I guess. Think of it as that outside foot is coming to the front of the toe of the guy you're throwing. So I'm stepping to the front of that toe. Hand that's on the wrist is going to the far armpit and I'm pinching it tight to my chest. At the same time, my inside leg is stepping deep with my hips through his knee and I'm pulling him tight to my chest. When I get here, this is where, again, when I'm showing it at camp or to a lot of newer kids, there's a lot of different ways where they'll get into a great position and then they'll pull them on top of them, or they'll wind up going back, and they'll stand up and try twisting them. And that's not how it's going to be at a high level. And this throw will work at a really high level. You just got to commit to it. So when I step in, elbow, wrist is going to the far armpit, foot's coming to the front of his foot, inside foot is coming behind, hips are coming deep, pinching this tight to my chest. All I want to do now is lean back a little bit. First thing that should hit the mat should be my inside shoulder. My hip should carry his hips just a little bit in the air. Right there. It's a very low amplitude throw. If you want to, it is a throw, but it's very low amplitude. Not a big high flying throw, not a big lat drop. So again, I'm stepping in front of his foot, other foot stepping behind, hands going to the far armpit, pulling everything tight to my chest. Now literally my hips driving in is what lifts his hips. Right here, just gonna be falling over that shoulder. What really gets him light and makes it be a little bit of a low amplitude throw is me controlling this upper body and my hips being able to lift there. And that really is my hips being committed through the side of his leg. So one more time, taking my 2-on-1 off, baiting him with my elbow. He grabs the elbow, I'm stepping into it. Hand on the wrist goes to the far armpit. Right here, pulling it, leaning over, looking over that inside shoulder. All right, moving on to the next little throw trip we have here. I don't really like calling this one a throw because the last one was low amplitude. This is really just falling over. Same thing, upper body on what I want to control, trying to bait him with the elbow, he's grabbing it. But for this time, this leg's far back. And he knows he's been scouting or that's just his stance. That leg's really far back. If I need to get to it and I have to take a little bit of risk, I can still get to a big move from here. There's a lot of different ones. But one I want to show right now, get that leg far back, half hole. I'm just going to start with my toe draped. It could be all the way up on his butt if that leg's further back. I mean, I'll start as high up on the leg as I have to. And I'm just going to start hopping. And he's going to wrestle with me, keep that leg far away, keep circling. He's going to start scooting away. I'm just going to keep hopping. I'm going to keep hopping until I can get hip to hip. That was a little bit ago. But that, even just doing that as a drill will really help me build my balance and awareness of where I'm at, where I'm leaning, and him. So just hopping around to that is really can develop some good skills if you're not comfortable there. So again, he's grabbing that far elbow, but his inside leg is really far back. I'm just going to be reaching for it with my toe. I'm just going to hop to it. I'm going to try to snake down his leg and get hip to hip. Once I can get hip to hip right here, hand on the wrist, now is going to be shooting up to that far armpit. And all I'm going to do is sweep this inside leg out from underneath both of us. So right here, far armpit, kicking that leg out, and it kind of naturally brings you up. And that kind of looks flashy or fancy. It might not look like that in a live match, but it really is just kind of two guys kind of falling over. So he's grabbing that, hooking, hopping to getting hip to hip, and then just pulling him down right on top of me. It really can't be emphasized enough that I have to be looking the same way he's looking. My hips have to be looking the same way he's looking for when I'm pulling him on top of me. And this one really is kind of just pulling him up right on top of me. I just have to have everything tight and all his posts out of the way for it to work. And it's really good hold, but I have to hop to the point where I'm hip to hip, and I'm not turning and looking into him here. I'm pulling him tight to me. I want to keep him twisted up. I don't want to twist myself up. So I want to keep him looking at me, and this leg is just going to shoot out right from underneath us, and I'm coming up on top there. Really important. That's why it's really important that when I'm doing this, I own this shoulder. If I'm really loose down on this arm, and we go down, and I don't have that arm tight, we're in a big scramble there. So I have to make sure that that shoulder is being brought down, and that I'm being brought out on top of it. Right here, hip to hip, coming up on top. Alright, next little trip throw off my 2-on-1. It's going to be, again, attacking that inside leg. When I'm doing this one, I am going to be sliding off the shoulder a little bit, but it's really important that I have confidence in my lock and that it's secure on his bicep elbow. All I'm going to be doing here, it's kind of set up similar to if that leg's far back and I'm hooking with my toe. And sometimes it might be a feel on which one I'm going to be going to. It could be from the same position. So this one, that foot's a little further back. All I'm going to be doing is I like putting my toe up at his ankle just to feel, really. And if it's too close like that, I probably won't be doing it. It just feels like it can be a little tight. So if this leg's a little further back, right here, I feel like a good balance. I'm going to be dropping my outside knee down to the mat, and I'm coming from controlling his shoulder down to his bicep elbow. As I do that, hand on the wrist is going right down to the ankle, and my head is going right into the side of his ribs, right there. And I kind of want to balance him on my forehead. I kind of want to make him be a little teeter-totter there. So, got my 2-on-1. That leg's a little far back. Throwing my toe up, it feels like it's a good distance away. Hand that's on the wrist is going to the ankle. Outside leg going straight down to my knee. My head is going right into his side, right here. When I go from controlling his shoulder down to the bicep, I'm pinching this arm really tight to my shoulder. This is huge on this move working. I have to have this arm clamped tight. This has to be locked in. If this isn't locked in, then I'm going to get extended and I can still scramble out of it. But I definitely, ideally want to lock that arm in. So taking my 2-on-1 off, that leg's back, feeling where the ankle's at, dropping my outside leg down to the knee, hand that's on the wrist is going straight down to his ankle, head's right into his side, and all I'm going to be doing is just lean into my left hip, right here. Balancing on my head, taking him through. That's how I drill it. Very rarely does it happen like that, that pretty in a match, and it does, but a lot of times it's more of a flop down the mat, and it's just good timing with the kick and trip. But to really develop all the areas of it, that's kind of how I want to drill it. Take my 2-on-1, that leg's back a little bit, step into it, feeling where that ankle's at, wrist, hand that's on the wrist, it's going straight down to his ankle, head's going into the side of his ribs, outside knee's going straight down the mat, right here. Keeping this arm glued tight to my shoulder here. And now, it's not a penetration, and I see that a lot, where guys want to penetrate through here, and then it winds up being more of a flop, and kind of a clumsy thud. This is more of just a fall. So, from this angle, when I drop down here, and I'm tight, this arm's tight to my side, hands on the ankle. Now it's not a penetration through him this way. It's more of falling, almost to the camera. A little bit of an angle. Bringing that ankle up in the air. Again, one more time. Starting with my 2-on-1. That leg's back. Feeling where it's at. If I'm too close, or this leg's too close, it feels really awkward. And it's really clumsy if I try doing it here. It's kind of it's a higher level move because it's a balance move. It's balanced in the sense that when I drop in, I'm leaning onto him, knowing where we're going. And he's got a lot of weight into me, and now I'm just carrying it, redirecting it. But if he's too close, or I step too deep with that outside leg, that's where it winds up being really clumsy, trying to do this, and it's not very realistic. So you got to kind of play around with it if you're new to it. So that's, again, the importance of a good partner. That leg's back a little bit. I'm leaning on him, feeling where that ankle is. Outside leg, dropping straight down to my knee. Hand that's on the wrist, right down to his ankle, head into his side. Right here, leaning to my side. Taking him through. So that's when my head's shallow. Next attack, pretty much the same as the last one. Just the only difference is now is that my head's coming all the way through. And this way I can finish it penetrating through him. The other way, when my head's shallow, I don't want to penetrate through him necessarily as much as just kind of tip over to that inside hip. This one now, I feel where it's at. I drop to that knee. My head is coming all the way through for my fireman's right here. My head's all the way through, and I can drop to my inside hip, or I can penetrate through with just a regular penetration stepping fireman's. With this also kind of adds a little bit more freedom with him circling. A lot of times it'll happen just by him circling without me coming here, where I'm dropping underneath and now going to my fireman, stepping up, or coming to that inside hip. Really just how you like finishing. But I'm not focused as much as trying to control my head balancing him right on the center or on the side of his ribs. Not really worried about that. But this one, my lock is not dropping down as low to the elbow. I'll lose a lot of that torque on his arm if I'm down at the elbow on this one. So I guess there are little subtle differences that change a lot of the move. But exact same way as I'm holding it, and it can be the same when I'm testing the waters with my foot, except my head's just coming all the way through this time, taking him to that hip, keeping the arm tight, leaning through. And again, so important that I have that arm locked in. If I'm loose at all on that arm, I'm losing all or most of this hold. So dropping in, head comes through. Really important that he feels that. There's no slipping down. If he starts standing up, I'm losing his arm and it's slipping. He starts standing up, it takes him down through just because I have that arm that tight. So that's really, really important. Make sure we're comfortable locking in those elbows, my 2-on-1s to my chest, to my shoulder, just to make sure that's anchored in there good. So again, last time through. This time, I'm just going to let him circle. He's circling out in front of me, just lowering my level, bringing my head right into my fireman's, letting it develop, letting his movement develop my offense. So he's circling out in front of me, letting my arms come relaxed a little bit, tight. Once I get underneath him with that arm, bringing his shoulder down, stepping up, carrying him through. Okay, so this next position that we're going to be in on my 2-on-1 is a front headlock, and I don't want to be here. Ideally, I don't ever want to be here. If I put myself here or if I just get caught here for whatever position, it doesn't have to be getting caught here from having my 2-on-1. It could be getting caught from just a shot where I get a little extended and then I wind up with the 2-on-1 and I'm underneath him. Or right here, I'm baiting him into jumping front headlock. So I got my 2-on-1, and I'm just throwing my head down and kind of baiting him to jump over the top of it. So as he's doing this, the only time I'm ever going to be doing this is when I own his shoulder, where it is so tight and cemented to my chest or to my shoulder. That's the only time I'm going to be doing this, is when I know that I have that shoulder locked in. So I'm baiting him, dropping my head down. He's getting real strong, bringing me down to the mat. I'm staying up. I don't want to go down all the way to the mat. I'm really working to stay up. And all I'm going to be doing, hand that's on the wrist, is going to be going to the far, or I guess it's the same side of the arm that I'm trying with. So hand that's on the wrist is going to be going to the far side leg, and I'm really committing, sitting down underneath him. So stepping in, hands going to the far leg, and I'm looking through right there. Partner, it's very important that you stay relaxed and stay tight. A lot of times you almost want to bail and kind of post, and it can wind up hurting you or your partner more than if you just stay locked in and tight. It actually carries him through a lot safer. So just to keep both guys safe, partner who grabs the front headlock, make sure you stay committed to grabbing the front headlock even when he's bringing you through. I don't want to release and try posting. It can kind of jam you up. So I got my 2-on-1. He's jumping front headlock. Hand that's on the wrist is coming to that far leg, and I'm just sitting underneath. I have to really commit hard underneath with my hips. And when I sit in, it's not sitting to my butt. I step underneath, and I'm actually carrying him up and through. My hips aren't going down to the mat. My hips now are coming up and driving him through. That's when my head peeks out to the side. A lot of times, it won't peek out to the side like that. And I can still do this. It feels like I can't sometimes, but it's kind of a false fear. It's just you have to commit that much more in there when you sit. So what you don't want to see is when he jumps front headlock and I step in and I'm pulling here. That's not what it is when my butt hits the mat. When I step in, my butt stays up and carries it through like that without a partner. Kind of looks a little clumsy, but that's what it looks like without a partner. With a partner, he's jumping front headlock. I feel that weight pulling me down. He's being a good partner, keeping this front headlock as tight as he can. Now hand on the wrist, going to that far leg, and I'm stepping in, head up, and across his back. Right there. Alright, this next hold off a 2-on-1. I don't know what you want to call it. I call it the Duro, just because Mike Duro showed it to me in a practice one time, and the way he showed it was kind of funny. Because I like hanging out in a 2-on-1. He just came up to me halfway through practice and just said, "Dennis, just grab 2-on-1 and just put it past him." And I kind of thought he was crazy, but for whatever reason later in practice, it felt like something like that was there just the way we were wrestling. And it'll happen a lot when we're just kind of standing straight up, pushing against each other. And all I'm going to be doing is pushing off of him. So I'm actually pushing off of him. And when I do that, talked before about my arms relaxing, I'm actually pushing him away, or I'm pushing myself away from him, I guess. And my arms are relaxing. I'm pushing away and trying to get a slingshot effect, like a little jerk, a little whip on him past me. So it really is kind of as simple as pushing into each other. And now I'm just going to be throwing myself off of him. I'm not doing it in front of him. Obviously, that's kind of pulling them right in front into each other. I'm just throwing off of him to an angle and really getting a lot of step, torque, a big step to get a lot of torque and whip. And then it's just a hustle to the leg. Another way that a different variation of it, and Corey Clark, national champ at Iowa, was really good here. He was deadly here. He would take it right off of his post when an opponent would post on him. And this is probably better. I'm more comfortable on doing it from my 2-on-1 and attacking the hips, throwing myself off, and then attacking around the waist, which probably a little bit of a bad habit. It's always better to go to the legs. And that's where Clark got really deadly with it, kind of taking off right from a guy posted. He didn't have to waste any time getting to a 2-on-1. He would grab the wrist, crossed wrist, and then he would throw himself back and get guys coming in right to his high crotch. So his kind of looked more like this, where he'd attack that far wrist here, and then he would sidestep backwards here and get his high crotch coming, getting the guy coming into, which is probably better than the way I do it from a different angle. He's posting on my shoulder, coming up in the armpit. Other hand is coming across wrist. And obviously it's really big and important how you're leading your legs. So you're just going to have to figure that out. what leg you're going to be leading for which side you're attacking. But right here is my right leg lead, attacking that left with my left side, his right arm, going to that wrist, up high in his armpit, and just side step shuffling to my back leg. Here, getting it coming in, lowering my level to my high crouch, getting that ankle running through. So 2 ways to hit it. One kind of strictly for my 2-on-1, we're pushing into each other. Got kind of a little lull in action, just throwing myself off of him, really pushing him away with my arms here, and attacking the waist. Or right when he's posting, coming there, where I'm attacking down to my high crouch. So we showed a lot of offense from a 2-on-1, and just being familiar with the other side of that coin, knowing how to clear a 2-on-1. So now my opponent's got a 2-on-1 on me. Just ways that I feel comfortable and that have frustrated me when I have a 2-on-1 on getting someone clearing a 2-on-1 on me. It's not as much as attacking the wrist for a lot of guys, or the elbow. And again, these are good ways that a lot of people are good at clearing a 2-on-1. I'm just not that comfortable there. But when people do attack that elbow, it's always with my elbow in, and I'm circling out to the same side as the arm that I'm attacking. Another way that was really good and effective that I got really frustrated with when I would have a 2-on-1 is a guy attacking the high hand in my armpit. And it's real natural to attack the wrist or the far elbow, but when you're attacking the top hand, it really helps loosen the 2-on-1 up when I can control that top hand. Helps me loosen my upper body up, which essentially now he just has a cross wrist square, which I can wrestle with that pretty easily. But when he's controlling up high here, kind of limits me. So really attacking this top hand and bringing my elbow back to my side as I'm squaring is a really good way to clear a 2-on-1. If a guy's got a key lock on me, guy's got a tight key lock on me, a lot of times this is really hard to clear. Something I learned just recently, a little trick, coming underneath, pummeling inside and grabbing that far bicep, and then really just spreading my elbows wide. Here and now I can attack my underhook, get to your body lock, wherever you're comfortable there, but just focusing on attacking that far bicep, weaseling my hand in here, and this is going to be a fight too. It's a dog fight. When guys are tight and they're good with the 2-on-1, it's going to be a fight to get my hand into that bicep, and now I'm just raising my elbows wide and clearing, keeping pressure into them at all times, chasing down angles. But right there, really focusing on bringing your elbows up high. So those are a couple of good ways to clear a 2-on-1. The best way that you're going to find is just experimenting. Kind of play wrestling in there with your partners and experimenting where you're comfortable and where you're good. So make sure you spend time in there.